Hello, everyone. I'm Gena Smith. I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer for LVMH North America. Thank you so much for being with us today. We have an amazing panel, and we're here to talk to you about sustainability.
I'm Gigi Burris. I'm the owner of Gigi Burris Millinery, a small accessories company in New York City. And I am the founder of Closely Crafted, a nonprofit initiative dedicated to preserving craftsmanship in American fashion.
Hi, my name is Maria Cornejo, and I'm a founder of Zero Maria Cornejo, based in New York, sustainable company for 25 years.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to speak with you today. Gigi, we'll start with you. As a small brand, how has manufacturing in America and working with local artisans benefited your business?
Closely Crafted has a mission to preserve craftsmanship in United States, made in America, luxury goods. And the planet really benefits from a local production ecosystem because designers have a lower carbon footprint in their production. They have inventory agility where they can produce on order. They have waste mitigation. And really at the heart of Closely Crafted is people. It's artisans. And it's giving people rewarding work with their hands, upskilling them, and creating job stability in our own community.
So are you working with existing artisans and designers, or are you also soliciting new artisans and designers and trying to bring awareness to all of these different métiers?
Both, because, as I'm sure that you have found in the work that you both do, it's an aging workforce. And without young talent coming in, it won't be a sustainable industry for launching new designers.
Maria, you opened Zero Maria Cornejo in 1998, a time when sustainability was not really on the fashion industry's radar screen as it is today. What inspired your commitment then to sustainable practices?
What inspired was basically having children. And when I opened the store, my son was 8 months old, my daughter was 6 years old. And just after working for big companies and seeing the waste of traveling around the world and producing around the world, I decided that I wanted to have something that was locally produced, know where it was made, support the local economy, and also produce on demand. So I was looking for fabrics that were stock fabrics, inventory, dead stock, and upcycling those fabrics. And I read a really interesting book called What We Leave Behind, which I thought was, as a parent, I want a fantastic world for my children and for my grandchildren,
At the time, because you were such a trailblazer, was it challenging to set up the business, to find the products, to find people that you could work with?
It was very challenging when we started to upscale production because a lot of the fabric companies were not doing anything sustainable. So there was a lot of, apart from using dead stock, and there was a lot of talk with trying to convince the mills to do things correctly. So a lot of it was working on exclusives and explaining to them that that was the future, and which at the time they were not interested in. So there was a lot of push and pull because, we weren't doing big quantities, so to them it wasn't interesting. But then I said to them, if you develop something for us, then you can put it in your collection and you can sell it to one of the big companies. And that's when you make your money back.
Gigi, as a small brand, how has manufacturing in America and working with local artisans benefited your business?
I think it's a tremendous benefit to be able to produce locally. And when I first started my brand, I was making 6 hats and catering to small boutiques. And I worked with a 3rd-generation blocking factory, and blocking is the art of hand molding the hats. And working alongside them allowed me to grow very thoughtfully, steadily. And now, we're doing much larger volumes of production, and I'm, grateful that they can handle that capacity also. But having that agility allowed me to really thoughtfully grow. And I think that if I had had minimums and, was forced to produce overseas, I would have had to seek outside capital and I wouldn't have been able to remain independent. And so I think as local production decreases, the ability to launch brands decreases too.
Was it easy for the customer to embrace sustainability? Were they more advanced?
Yes and no. I mean, what we did from the beginning is that what I loved is that I kept saying to everybody, nobody's going to buy something because it's sustainable. It has to be beautiful, it has to be desirable, and the plus is that it's sustainable. And my goal was always to make sustainability more luxurious, more desirable. I said nobody's going to buy something because it's beige and granola. It's not interesting. It's really not interesting. So if you want people to buy things in the right way, it has to be desirable. Yes. And one of the things that happened after 9/11 and things is that people really wanted to support us because we were making locally, we were supporting the local economy. Because sustainability is not just about materials, it's about 360. Mm-hmm. And so we managed to survive because we had women come in and say, we want to support you, make it in New York, you make it in America. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a big part of the conversation. And even through COVID, when a lot of people, their supply lines were down, we could still make things, because we have everything localized. And, not everything, like the shoes are made in Italy and the knits, some things are made in Bolivia, but whatever could be made in New York, and working with factories that are vertical.
Which was amazing, I'm sure, because of we think about all of the factories in Europe that were closed and all the designers that really had a difficult time getting product made, and then the delivery. So that was a benefit to you having your infrastructure here in New York City, and not to mention all the jobs that you're creating and maintaining. Gigi, how have the European standards influenced the direction of your mission?
I think that with LVMH and honestly any European luxury house, there's one singular thread that sort of is consistent, and it's craftsmanship. And there's something about a European mentality when it comes to quality that is so inspiring, because it's not only coming from a brand level, it's coming from the government with Made in Italy and the French government, and it's going to the consumers, and it's telling the consumer base to buy less, to buy more thoughtfully, and to invest in quality. And when you invest in quality, you're also investing in people that made that quality item. And so I think that in America, what we can really learn from that is when you invest in quality, locally crafted goods, you are investing in people. You are sowing seeds into your local economy. And I think that we have a tremendous challenge in creating that value-based benchmark in the American client. And so there's something about that European thoughtfulness, the reverence of the artisans, that we can, both as brands and with Closely Crafted, I think learn so much from.
Do you find that it's challenging? I mean, you both worked and studied in Paris, and where these artisans and these métiers are more developed, as you've said. So have you found that it's difficult to find the talent here that have the experience and also the desire to work in these ways?
Very much so. I think that as a nation, we have really put secondary education as such a benchmark for young people. And in Europe, it's often this artisan pathway that has reverence and respect. And so how can we change the script to inspire young people that these are jobs that are very rewarding? And at the same time, we need to make sure that those jobs are sustainable, that there is enough workflow from brands like myself and brands like Maria's, that we are able to give work to the factories to employ artisans. So it's really a circular sort of support system that's needed.
I mean, we've definitely seen the impact from a talent standpoint, and obviously we don't have factories in North America to the most. I mean, we have some, not in New York, but from a talent standpoint, we've definitely seen the challenge. We have over 200 métiers around the world, and we're really investing through our métiers to excellence and trying to continue to cultivate. This is how also we met and worked with you. How can we continue to cultivate these métiers and make sure that, first of all, people are even aware that these positions exist? Because I think a lot of the different roles, people aren't necessarily aware that the jobs are even out there. everybody thinks that, AI is doing everything.
No, somebody made a reflection to me, is that handmade? And I said, well, every piece of clothing is handmade. Maybe the print was done in a computer, maybe the pattern was partly done in a computer if it's mass produced, but they all have to go through a hand process, and that's never going to change.
No, and it's just a core part of the product development.
And I think you see young people yearning for something more tangible with their hands because of the way that technology is constantly speaking to young people. So it's about how collectively as an industry do we inspire them that these positions are available and they're really rewarding jobs.
And it goes back to your point about making sure that then we have the whole system in place, and hopefully then that also can have a positive impact on the manufacturers and the production teams here that are in New York City alone, just sort of bringing back all different aspects of the business from a 360 standpoint. Maria, as a CFDA Board of Directors member and member of both the inaugural CFDA Sustainability Committee in 2013 and the current Sustainable Strategies Committee, you've championed environmental causes in other ways throughout your career. What has been the most important and rewarding part of this activism?
Amplifying the message of climate change and sustainability, and just, putting it out there. And I think you can only change things from within, and that was always my goal. You can't make big strokes. You only start by talking to the people nearest and closest to you, and little by little the word spreads. And I think that's, to me, the fact that the industry in the last 25 years, and especially the last 5 years, is finally recognizing that. And for me, I was really flattered that we won the Sustainability Award from the Fashion Group the year after Kering had won it. So, the fact that, people are noticing things and they're more aware and how they're consuming and how they're aware that their choices matter. Every choice you make matters. And even if it's a tiny choice.
That was going to be sort of one of my questions, because I fully agree with you. The customer is, first and foremost, it's about the design, it's about the product. But there does seem to have been a tipping point where sustainability is becoming more important and customers are asking about sustainability as part of the process, whereas before that wasn't the case. What do you feel has been the tipping point? Can you pinpoint anything?
I think climate change, just seeing the horrors of what's going on. And I think people are actually realizing that it's not a joke anymore, that it's not like fantasy. And I think realizing that, we need to get back to the value that you buy less, but you buy better, and things that are better made. And, luxury is buying maybe just one really good thing a season, but it's something that you really want. You're not just buying things because they're cheap, that you're buying things because you really desire them and you saved up for them. It's like going back to I grew up in Chile, and we used to save up money for Sunday best, or, in France it's the same thing. Everybody looks after their clothes and you get things repaired. And that culture of things being special and being cherished, I think, needs to come back.
Definitely feels more of a European, Latin American philosophy than, unfortunately, what we always grew up with in North America.
But I think it's shifting. I think it's shifting.
I definitely see that with the younger generation. Even just the focus that they have on vintage, for example, as opposed to always going out and buying new things. They're really looking for something that has more of an individual connection to them. And certainly they're looking at that from a sustainability standpoint. And whenever I meet with any young designers, and obviously we work with a lot of young students, it's amazing to me, sustainability is just the baseline for them. I mean, that's not even an extra. They're all thinking about sustainability and how they incorporate that into their business from the beginning. But as we talked about the other day on the call, I mean, that's really hard to do also from a business standpoint. How has that impacted you, or what have been some of the impediments or challenges that you, as a small business owner, that you have faced trying to make sure that your business is sustainable?
I think that there's such a pressure to be profitable. I'm not getting pressure from anyone except for myself because we're self-funded, but it's easy to sort of weigh options and what's going to make us more money. And I think, retail partnerships aren't always the best way to share the message of sustainability. I think what has been an advantage to brands now in this digital age is that we can share sustainability messaging directly with our consumers. When I started my brand, it is a younger brand than Maria's, but it was still prior to the sustainability message being so vocal. And I think that when you start your brand from a small self-funded aspect, it's also there's that level of bootstrapping and scrappiness that sustainability is so innate because you can't afford to make lots of inventory. Right. Made to order is, more profitable. And I think that when you come from these humble beginnings, sustainability is so ingrained into the DNA that it's a lot easier to make sustainable choices.
So just maybe a little bit about people. We touched on that. And Gigi, I start with you, but how can companies empower their employees to contribute meaningfully to environmental and social causes?
I think I have a very small business, so I offer employees a very clear insight into every aspect of our business. And I think then it's a lot easier when you see the 360 picture of how important sustainability is. I think where it becomes challenging is you get bigger and bigger businesses where sustainability becomes very siloed. Mm-hmm. And that sustainability messaging it's so individualized, it's not in every aspect of the company. And I think where sustainability really works is when there is symbiotic conversations across, production and design, packaging, retail, that if it's in the root of the tree, then you have this fruit of sustainability versus someone coming in and being like, you're sustainable now, let's energize around that. I also think, a lot of the people that I work with are very young. And like we had said, that is a part of their value-based system innately. And so that's been, really a value add to my business.
Gigi, what advice would you give for emerging designers or independent businesses that are looking to embed circularity and purpose into their business models?
I think that creativity is supreme. But with creativity, you have to have quality. And I think that when you have an executed idea that is creative with quality, sustainability is often woven into that when it's made locally. And so I would say really, if we can invest in an ecosystem of quality local production, we can help launch brands because it gives them the tools to be creative, to be sustainable, and to produce goods that are lasting and that people are coveting, that they can own. So I think as a industry, we need to create an ecosystem. And for the designers, I would say, it's not a successful benchmark when you get to produce overseas. I would really encourage them to invest in local production. And if that's an in-house atelier or a factory partner, it's going to give them so much more agility.
I think it's important to tell the story because when I first opened the store, I remember somebody coming in and I just made a rack of clothes. And then I thought, okay, we'll see what people like and we'll just make on demand, which I love the idea of that. And after working for big companies, I wanted to make everything in the back. I had one person doing jersey, one person doing silks, another person doing jackets. And I like the idea of everything just being made there and just being made on demand and the idea of an atelier, and having the address in the label, so it was special. I like that idea. I mean, it's sort of a bit Parisian, I suppose, because I lived in Paris, but the idea of knowing who made your clothes and telling the story. And I remember somebody coming in the store once and complaining about the price of something. And I said, can I walk you in the back? I said, you can come and see who's making your shirts. And I said that these 3 people have medical insurance. And they're making your things. This is why this costs this. It's not like a price for the sake of a price. So if you're buying something here, this is what you're paying for. And I think it is about telling the story, why things are special. The work that goes into them, the craftsmanship, that is intrinsic to, now to be able to continue pushing the message.
Yeah, and it goes back a little bit to in a way, less is more, right? The culture of less is more.
And I think at the end of the day, it's about people. It's about the people that made those pieces and the people who spent countless hours making the perfect stitches for the trunk or the jumpsuit or the hat. And if we can celebrate and give equity to those people and to the customer, I think there's going to be less resistance to the price.
Yeah, I mean, we had a program that we do with Bolivian knitters, and what I wanted to do is to give them the credit for what they were making, because it's indigenous women knitting in Bolivia, all handmade, handcrafted. These sweaters cost a fortune. So I got a label made where they signed every piece.
Oh, that's amazing.
So every
special.
piece is signed by a different lady, and they're indigenous women, and they're using that money to bring up their children, and we don't work with them every season, but when we do, I think it's giving them pride, and the clients also knowing this is luxury. You know who made your piece of clothing, and you're empowering that woman to put their child through school. This is a beautiful piece. It's not just another garment, and I think telling the story is intrinsic to us having a future with this.
And that's such a positive story because, again, sometimes the industry perceived as not making, a contribution. I mean, it's characterized a lot for the harm that the industry has done but that's such a positive way to say the positive impact that the fashion industry can have on people, on their lives, on métiers, on careers, and on the local communities that people are living in.
I mean, in New York, fashion is one of the biggest industries after tech.
Exactly.
So I think it's good to remind people of that. It's not frivolous,
All the livelihoods that are dependent on the industry.
There's a lot of jobs that depend on us producing in New York and having
Family-owned businesses.
Yes.
Any last comments? Any wishes, dreams, hopes, advice?
Oh, I just think it's young designers. I think you can get creative with a lot less. And since you have the parameters already, it's a lot easier to start from scratch and start small and start clear and edited.
And I also think, it's very easy for us to sit in this beautiful room and say, oh, buy this expensive thing and you'll be sustainable. I also want to be mindful that, these are luxury items that we're selling. And we understand that they're not necessarily for everyone. But, what's been an amazing democratization is that people can buy things on the real or a secondhand market. And so if you can't invest in it off of the rack, wait for it to go on sale, go to the real, but be mindful, or go vintage and get inspired by a style that's off the runway, but be mindful about who made it and where it was made.
I think, as we were saying, recognize what goes into making the product. I love this idea of giving the Bolivian women credit.
The women actually got a special label and they signed their names because it also gives them a sense of pride. This is what I knitted, so I'm going to make the best job possible because my name is going in that garment.
But I think that's what's important. I mean, for me, I'm listening, and again, working in human resources, so I'm always thinking about the implication on people, just recognizing the human interaction, the human piece that goes into the positive in your cases, but also sometimes when it's not positive, and really being aware of the implications of the garment and everything that goes into it. And if there's a human being, exactly what you said, there's a human being that has to touch every single product.
Yeah,
that's just part of the way the industry
behind
works.
every designer,
exactly.
There's a team, there's a village, there's, we're only as good as our team, all of us. And that's a recognition of other people's talent as well, I always say it's not a democracy, but I'm happy to hear,
Well, thank you so much today.
Thank you.
It was a fascinating and super interesting and I think very important conversation. So thank you so much for both of you for being with us today.